I offered to buy 2 new air conditioners. You can see one there, you can see one here. Otherwise, we will be sweating by now. I decided to change the red carpet, so you can see it looks new. That is what my modest income can afford. So, just like I did in my own village, you see, I realized that we all want to live comfortably within our homes without taking care of our environment. So in my village, in Ieve, in Owan East local government of Edo State,
these policy interventions have resulted in domestic gas accounting for about 82% of Ghana's thermal requirements and 40% of domestic LPG supply. So it means that in Ghana, almost 80% of all electricity is generated using liquid natural gas. The other 20% continues to rely on fossil fuels. So the plan going forward is to be able to cover the total generation with liquid natural gas 100% before the year 2030. The decision to switch to gas as an alternative to light crude oil has undoubtedly resulted in increased fuel supply and reliability and significant cost savings for the country. For instance, in 2022, 107.65 billion scf of gas was exported from Ghana's oil-producing fields for power generation and industrial consumption. This is equivalent to 20.45 million barrels of crude oil. And so if we're not using natural gas, we would have had to buy 20.45 million barrels of light crude oil to generate electricity. The cumulative savings from switching from light crude to gas is estimated at 1.34 billion. It means that if Ghana was continuing to use light crude oil instead of natural gas, we would have had to spend $1.54 billion over the period. As a result of these policy decisions, which undeniably has not been an easy journey, it may interest you to know that Ghana currently has enough dependable generation capacity at 5,454 megawatts. And so the current doomsaw that we're going through is not because we don't have the generation capacity, it's because we don't have enough fuel to be able to meet the demand.
Dele, you have been a man of great character, not prone to bend to the whims and caprices of our nation's powers. I recall how you gallantly chose me as your 2012 Man of the Year, even though I had resigned as Minister of Power the previous August. You asked the then Governor of Rivers, the doctrine precludes outsiders from meddling in affairs around the United States. Yet, Washington ignored the chaos and anarchy in Liberia that started on December 24, 1989, when Charles Taylor led the National Patriotic Front of Liberia to launch a war from Nimba County that shares border with the Ivory Coast. Nigeria was compelled, as the giant of Africa, to not only move its troops, Army, Navy, and Air Force into Liberia, but also spend a fortune in the country under the auspices of Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS. I understand that at the end of the war, Nigeria lost about 1,000 officers and soldiers, that is, a whole battalion, and also spent some $8 billion on the ECOMOG operation.
Thank you. When the president of Ghana said they're generating and distributing 5,000 megawatts, I was wondering, Ghana with 1/7 of our population probably generates and distributes more than us. I was doing the calculation and we're discussing with Governor Duke. We must declare emergency in power. And the way to go is very simple. Embedded power and insist on gas supply. We have gas. We have it all over the place. I do not think, yes, we need the dollars, but I think making Nigeria more productive and pulling our people out of poverty, especially in the north, will give us far more value and dollars than focusing on exports. I think it's time to declare emergency. Geometric has shown it in Aba that embedded power will help us in that emergency. We should encourage it all over Nigeria. Thank you.
Our governor now, Abba Kabir Yusuf, will complete. You are laughing as if you knew that we couldn't find the 43 million naira when we came back. So Governor Dele should look at, and all other governors for that matter, should look at the possibility of generating power, because it's not a matter of only federal government alone. We will have to put all our heads and hands together to ensure that there is adequate and, of course, enough electricity in this country. For purposes of time, I want to say to celebrate once again, congratulations to our nation. Thank you and God bless you.
Nigeria, think of Africa, and think of where this continent of Africa is going. If you think about politics, connect the nexus with energy, you talk about strength or lack of. Let me unpack this. Nigeria, 37 billion barrels of oil reserves, 206 TCF of gas reserves. Then when we connect that to what the possibilities are, it's endless. We had the chairman of the occasion talk about energy and Nigeria leading the pack. We had Professor Bat in Nigeria talk about the power of unveiling that strength in the character of what Nigeria could be. And let me connect this. If Nigeria puts the directed investment in building up our gas reserves and gas resources, Nigeria will be a standard power in the forefront of what President Mahama said as a leading light in Africa. Another strength we must think about, and this is what I'm going to leave all of us with. If we see Russia with the geopolitical situation in Europe, the Nord Stream 1 and Nord Stream 2 gas pipeline, Russia was selling $500 million of gas per day into Europe. Just think about that connectivity and the strength of what President Mahama said and what our discussing leader said, where Nigeria could be in the forefront of driving Africa's growth. Thank you very much.
And the condition was the United States will have to pull out of South Africa. She said it was a very stupid thing for us to do, and I agree. That you first get what you want. You know, like in the aircraft, you wear your mask before you look after others. And she said, no one gives the United States conditions. She reminded me that at the Bay of Pigs, where there were missiles, Soviet missiles facing the United States, there were also NATO missiles in Turkey facing the Soviet Union at the time. But the condition the Russians gave was, of course, you take out your missiles from Turkey and we'll take out our missiles from Cuba. The Americans agreed, but on condition that you do not tell the world that we obliged you that. It would have made more sense if we had agreed, and would have had a lot more leverage if we had agreed to allow the pipeline go through. Today it's a difficult situation because you're going to go through Niger. Niger is fully aligned with Russia today. I do not think they would even allow that to happen. But this is a nation that at one point were flaring 2.5 billion cubic feet of gas daily.
That's an equivalent of 25 million liters of diesel. You think of it. For over 40 years, we were flaring, burning 25 million liters of diesel. Talking about in the abundance of water, the fool is thirsty. Thank you. The day we realize that this country is bigger than all of us, a good example of a celebrant today, that you are bringing all political parties together, irrespective of your party affiliation, that we will realize that Nigeria is bigger than all of us, then we will be a better nation. For us to settle all these problems of energy is no rocket science. And that's the truth. It's because of our selfish interest. That's the reason why we've been having a lot of bottlenecks here and there. Selfish interest. So I want to appeal to each and every one of us. Talk is cheap. Enough of talking and talking and talking as a nation. Let us look at this nation beyond all of us, bigger than all of us, and let us jointly and collectively look at things that will be betterment, that will be in good structure and in a very futuristic manner that can better the lot of even generation yet unborn. On this day, I want to thank God Almighty for the celebrant's life. What you are doing, you have actually displayed selflessness that is very rare in our country by upgrading this all. Let each and every one of us pick our public utilities, whatever we can do. Government cannot do it all. Let us imbibe this culture, what the celebrant has actually done today. I want each and every one of us to give him a resounding round of applause.
I think he's one of the most consistent journalists that I can say we have in this country. He is also very professional, and he is a creative journalist. He sees opportunities to report and inform